The official championship week, week 17, is over and done with. But there's still a lot of people who play on week 18, whether it's DFS or their championship game. Week 17 and 18 is just sandwiched together, and they go off the scoring for that. That being said, we're going to be going over the waiver wire still this week just in case you need it. And today we're going to cover 12 running backs that you could possibly pick up off the waiver wire. But before we do that, you need to click that subscribe button. Tap it with your finger on the phone. Click it with the mouse on the computer. I'm going to be a key resource to your research this offseason. Right before draft time, you're going to need me because we talk about these players every single day. I'm going to give you ideas. We're going to go over the advanced analytics, the metrics, the numbers, the player values, where they should be going in drafts, the rookies, all that stuff. If you don't click that button, you may miss it come draft season in August and September next year. Click that button. Stop missing out. Let's look at these 12 running backs. And Elijah Mitchell's a hot name off the waiver wire. And the waiver wire in general at the running back position, pretty hot going into week 18. Christian McCaffrey's dealing with a calf injury. We're monitoring that, and we're monitoring Elijah Mitchell. He saw 17 carries. Christian McCaffrey came out in the fourth quarter. Not all those carries came in the fourth quarter, but he got a lot of workload due to that. We're playing the Rams, but the Niners like to use the running back. We know this. They identify by that with Christian McCaffrey. They got a lot of weapons. It's not a guarantee, but whenever a running back stepping up into a situation who has been productive before, especially during his rookie season and in spurts after that, he could hit any time when given the opportunity. Elijah Mitchell could be doing that here in week 18. Something you want to look at. Monitor Christian McCaffrey. Khalil Herbert's hot right now. He has produced in back-to-back weeks 19 fantasy points against Arizona, which everybody scores against Arizona, so we were watching him. But in week 17 against the Falcons, 20.9 PPR fantasy points, 28 carries in his last two games. We got Green Bay this week. He's getting opportunities. The Bears are moving the football. Khalil Herbert's looking good. He's back to being explosive. He had that ramp-up period coming back from the injury, and now we're back to getting his old workload. He's a guy that should be rostered. He should not be on waivers if you're still playing. Zamir White is getting touches. That's what we can say. He's getting 19.66 carries per game. He is the volume king when Josh Jacobs is out. That does not mean he's going to be a top-tier fantasy asset, but it does mean he's going to score enough to get you by. In his first start, 17.5 PPR fantasy points. His second one, 14.5. Third one, 15.6. We're going to monitor Josh Jacobs, but we know if Josh Jacobs is out, nonetheless, he's going to get a lot of workload. He's more than likely going to score enough to get you by, because if you're carrying the ball 20 times a game, 17 to 22 is the range there. That means there's a high probability you're going to score at least 10, 11, 12 PPR fantasy points. He has surpassed that number every single time. Zamir White's safe. He's safe if Josh Jacobs is out. Jamal Williams here. Alvin Kamara is dealing with an ankle injury. Could be seeing more opportunities. Scored 11 fantasy points. Could be a huge get this week. Could be a guy that you plug and play in your lineup. Could be a sneaky DFS option as well. Could be on the cheap. A guy to monitor, and you're monitoring Alvin Kamara too. Zach Charbonnet might be running hot this week because Kenneth Walker's shoulder might impact his status, and if it does, it might be wheels up. We're on the road against the Cardinals. Running backs go ham against the Cardinals historically throughout the season. Cardinals present a get-right matchup for any running back going against them. He averages 13.35 PPR fantasy points per game when Kenneth Walker's out of the lineup, which is a very small sample of 2 games, but something to look at considering he would be getting more touches and opportunities. And he saw 5 targets in week 17. Something to pay attention to. Zach Charbonnet will be getting more workload if Kenneth Walker is out. So again, another injury we got to monitor. But Tyler Algier is a player to monitor as well. And he's not a monitor player. He's a player that you gamble with because Arthur Smith does not care. We're on the road against the Saints. Got to see what happens here. But still, The Falcons are weird. They do weird things, and Tyler Algier could be a hitter. Back-to-back games of over 15 fantasy points. Could happen again, could not. But again, another gamble player that you can add, and Kareem Hunt is too. He has 9 touchdowns on the year. He's a threat in every single game to cross the goal line, a guy to pay attention to, not a guy you're leaning on. But again, if you need to gamble on a player, he has 9 touchdowns on the season, and odds are every other game or so, he crosses the goal line. Justice Hill has some upside here. No Keaton Mitchell, and we got a matchup against the Steelers. The game scripts against the Steelers are always off and on. They could present some fantasy production to random players in general in those matchups. Scored 22 fantasy points against the Dolphins. Used heavily in the passing game. A guy you got to look at picking up this week. Roshan Johnson is still getting targets. He's still getting used in the passing game. 4 targets a game in his last 3 games. We got the Packers on the road. Khalil Herbert looks like the guy right now, and that should allow you to question Roshan Johnson's workload going forward. But if you're hurting, and he's down on the list for a reason. Jeff Wilson, you're never going to trust him. He hasn't hit this season. However, the Dolphins is dealing with injuries at the running back position. Mostert, we're monitoring him. And if you need a hope and a prayer against the Bills, maybe you're rolling with Jeff Wilson. Maybe. He's definitely going to be a cheap option in DFS considering he hasn't scored much this year and he's been on the injury report a lot this season as well. Again, another player you're just paying attention to. Hopefully you don't have to start him. You're in a deep league if you are, but Jeff Wilson is another option on the waiver wire. Taj Spears is always an option. Workload, touches, opportunity. If we're ranking these players, because this isn't by rank, he'd be a little bit higher on this list, but this is more sporadic as we're just doing a macro overview of the waiver wire. But workload and snap shares there. He hits on a lot of weeks too, especially in the back 9 of the season. We got Jacksonville. Got to pay attention to him. He is a hope and prayer player in fantasy right now. Jalil McKinnon hit earlier this season. We got a matchup against the Raiders here, which could present some fantasy production here as they get in some crazy game scripts. You're not banking on him. He's starting to see a little bit more workload, a little bit more snap share, but not enough for you to count on. If you're counting on Jalil McKinnon this week, you're really hurting or you're really being contrarian in DFS. But still, if you're looking for a macro option, Jalil McKinnon is a guy you may want to look at. You might. I don't suggest it. Probably in a super deep league. Those are 12 running backs we're looking to pick up off the waiver wire for Week 18 if you're still playing right now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to hear about it. Are you playing this week? I want to hear about that as well. I know I've reached out to some people. I got a few people come back saying that they are. Their championship games week 17 and 18 combined. So I was like, man, I better make some content so you guys have something to work off of just in case. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.